So where do I even start with this engine? So just to name off a few: timing belt, nightmare; rust, have we made a mistake buying it?
They tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me to do something that could make sense. They hate when I keep dreaming I'll be famous, but I don't give a fuck.
So welcome back to another KM Builds video. In the last video we gave this a really good clean. If you missed that, make sure you go back and check it out. After giving it a clean, we've come to realize how much rust and how many issues there are with this truck. So as the title suggests, have we made a mistake buying it? So what we're going to do today is we're going to run through a list, run around the truck a little bit and show you where we're at. If you spot anything that we haven't picked up so far, make sure you drop it in the comment section below. But let's run around the truck. The first on the list is the most obvious and concerning issue, and that is the rust. So me and my trusty screwdriver will now show you all the rust. Rust, 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 more rust, 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 rust. So that's rust out the way. As you can see, it's a bit worse for wear. Next on the list is damage and dents, and it looks like someone has taken one of these to it, so we are now going to show you around. Smashed, broken, scratch and a dent. Big scratch and a big dent. Dent, 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 dent. Damage and dents is now out the way. It's not really looking good for us, so let's move on to the engine. So where do I even start with this engine? It's a 2-cylinder, 600cc, carburetor powered, which you know nothing about, and is less than 50 horsepower, so it wouldn't even pull the skin off a rice pudding. So that's the main issues out of the way, but we thought it's not too bad. We can always replace the parts and replace any of the damage. However, that's our next issue, is finding parts for these is incredibly hard, like finding a radiator, which the forklift driver decided to damage while putting ours on a trailer. So just to name off a few: timing belt, nightmare, try to get it from Japan. Any servicing parts like shoes and all that stuff, you got more chance in winning the lottery than finding a part online. So before we move on to the positives of buying a K truck, let's move on to the last kind of issue, and that's the general issues. And they lead on to slow and tiny. This thing is super slow, and me and Matt like to go to shows all across the UK, so if we want to go anytime soon, we have to leave a day early, and that's without me and him sat in it. Tiny. When you are sat in it, your knees touch the dash, and it's like being sat on a deck chair. The other one is aftermarket parts. There's very little aftermarket support. Never mind the stock stuff, finding aftermarket parts is an absolute nightmare. But now I got all the negatives out of the way, and all jokes aside, let's move on to the positives of actually buying one of these trucks. So moving on to the positives as to why we bought a K truck, we've listed off just a few as to why we bought one. The first one is cool as. The first K truck we really saw was one at Gravity, which was the Daihatsu, but that leads on to our next point, which is a JDM project, hence why we bought the Honda Acti. Custom parts and fab work. As I mentioned, a lot of the parts are hard work to get hold of, but it's not too much of an issue for us because that gives us an opportunity to make our own parts and do any fab work that we can to swap things in and out. Moving on to the last point, as I said, it's very slow and we don't even know if the engine works, but we do plan on swapping this engine out if possible for something a little bit more spicy. If you think about buying a K truck, make sure you bear in mind all of these points. Obviously we've bought one, we've found the issue, so you don't have to. If you liked the video, drop a comment and drop a like, and follow and subscribe.